Yes, finally. I've been waiting so long to make this video. Literally, since October is the last time I made a video of Wales actually winning a game. So nearly 2 years, it's unbelievable. But I am so chuffed, I'm so happy for the boys. What a roller coaster of a game that was. Sorry, take this off, it is too hot. I'm sweating in my office, apologies. What a game that was. I mean, it was a real roller coaster, back and forth. Wales come out of the blocks really well, like they did last week, except this week they looked way more intense. Everything was a lot more aggressive. The carries, the tackling, they were hitting Japan back. The defensive sets were good. They were going through some phases and creating stuff which we didn't really see last week, you have to be honest. And they looked like they were blowing Japan away. And then the second half came in, and basically the same thing happened as last week. The errors really started creeping in. A lot of mistakes from Wales were getting Japan into the game. Ill discipline at times, maybe a few harsh calls from the referees. But Japan started creeping in, and then I was thinking, oh my god, this is a repeat of last week, and Wales are going to throw it away. Got down to a 2 point lead, but you have to say, that last 15, 10 minutes, what a heart from those players. You could see they were all knackered, but they were throwing themselves into everything. They were forcing errors from Japan. Japan started chasing it and forcing stuff, and Wales just stayed strong. And for a team that hasn't won for so long, and basically multiple times made errors to try and throw the game away, that last 10 minutes, they just did sort of everything right, more or less. And they just closed the game out, but actually through playing rather than just what they tried to do last week and just kick the leather off it. God, sweating loads, sorry. Yeah, it was unbelievable. I am so happy, so chuffed for that group of players, and the coaching staff kind of indicates. Well, a lot of people criticised them last week for the game plan, and I think the way they came out this week showed that that game plan was wrong. So it was good to see stuff that went wrong last week got tweaked and changed. The players just looked different this week. Real aggression from a lot of players. Some players that were basically anonymous last week were really into everything this week. Dan Edwards justified his selection. His kicking out of hand was much better than what we've seen from Costello, no disrespect to him. His defence was a bit rubbish, to be totally honest. I'm being brutally honest about it, but everything else was really good, and put some amazing kicks into the corner also. And yeah, I'm just super chuffed. I mean, the relief of pressure the boys must be feeling in that change room after that now, it must be absolutely monumental. And it's probably will get people in the comments to say, oh, it's just a win over Japan. And yeah, we did split the series 1-1, but it's been such doldrums for Welsh fans and just Wales rugby in general. Let's just enjoy this weekend. It was just so much heart, and that's what was really satisfying. Last week, for the first time, I've never questioned the players' character and their determination. I felt like they kind of went through the motions last week. But this week, they clearly just came out and thought, like, we have got to do something. This is in our hands, and we can be the ones who make the difference and start turning things around. So really, really chuffed. The line-out was a lot better, not perfect. The scrum was, well, pretty good all the way through. They forced the whole front row off before half-time, which I thought was pretty brutal from Eddie Jones. We know he sort of usually does stuff like that, but pretty harsh. Sorry, I just literally can't stop sweating. I'm excited, obviously. So a lot of things that, like I said, were issues, they tweaked them, and everything came from the heart in that last 10 minutes. So, Wales is still in a really difficult place now, but going forward, you'd expect, hopefully in the next coming weeks, 1 or 2 weeks, they've got a candidate that they can name and say this is the coach, and then it gives them a springboard to start and build into the autumn, and hopefully begin the turning around process of where we've been over the last few weeks. This win probably does a lot more for the players than if we'd have carried on and beaten them by like 30 points. I think the fact that they came under the same pressures that they had when they buckled in previous games, and they were able to take it and fight back and actually be the ones who eventually scored to make it a 2-point lead, two score lead. So I think that'll do a lot of good for them. For Derry Lake, he finally gets to give a winning interview to a camera as a captain, rather than just, we're disappointed, we give everything. Like, it just changes everything for that group of players. They go back next season now and feel a lot more positive about where they are in their careers and where Welsh Rugby is. I'll go through the players individually. I think the front row was excellent in that first half. Nicky Smith, who was unlucky to go off, I thought he was good. He was busy around the park. Unlucky not to get one or two jackals. Derry Lake was a warrior. Couple of maybe questionable throws at the line out, but whoever was calling the line out was not necessarily giving him the easiest options at times. But his general play was good. I thought he talked to the ref quite well as well. Archie Griffin really made a good impact. The scrum was solid, won one or two penalties. He throws himself around in the loose as well, which none of the other tight heads who we've really got to select do offer that. He just needs to either get more game time at Bath or leave, because it's stifling his development at this point, I think. The two second rows, Freddie and Teddy, worked well together. Not the biggest tandem, but physical. And Teddy's work rate was through the roof. He did not stop running and tackling throughout the game, which was mega impressive. The back row was sort of, I think the balance was right, with Mann being 6. Not as noticeable as he was in the last game. Give away one or two silly penalties, which he is wont to do, but that's his game. He's a niggly player. He gets in their faces. I think we've missed that. He just maybe needs to get better at not getting caught at it. But I think he's the exact type of play we need at 6, and that sort of dog that just does dirty work, and you don't necessarily see a lot of him, but his tackles are low. He does threaten at the breakdown, and he's aggressive, and he's annoying, and he's a line-out option. I think I think he'll continue to build. Just needs to maybe cut out the silly penalties that he gives away at times. McLeod was excellent. I thought he was decent last week, but I thought this week he was excellent. A couple of really good physical tackles, real good steals and penalties at the breakdown. I think he had 3, maybe even 4, and even with his carrying, he was offering like a real aggressive amount of determination in his carrying, which I think he's what he offers a little bit different to Rafael. He's got that extra dimension to his game. I thought he was superb. Wainwright looked back to some of his best stuff that we saw a few years ago. I don't know if coming off the bench necessarily suits him, but he was confident when he was running with the ball. He was getting the ball in open spaces, breaking tackles, which is what we like to see and which is what we want to see from him. Kieran Hardy took his tries well, but I don't want to overly criticise in a victory. But I have to be honest, I thought he was pretty poor again. At least 2 of the tries came from his mistake. One was a poor exit kick, and the other one was, I think it was charged down, but he got charged down a couple of times again. A little bit laboured at the base again, but he did take his tries well. So I don't know. Unfortunately, I think he may have played his way further away from that jersey when I was expecting him to get closer. Dan Edwards was, probably one of the stars of the show. Like I said, his kicking was superb. He pulls passes in. He's not afraid to give things a go, and that's what I think we need. But his tackling was pretty poor at times. And I think that's going to be an area of the game that international teams will certainly be able to target. So something he's got to work on. He's not the biggest guy, but Costello's not the biggest guy, and he's getting players down. So but all in all, he's taken that jersey now, you'd have to imagine. And then the centres, Johnny Williams went off injured, was pretty anonymous again, unfortunately. Not that he was really given much opportunities, but whatever he got, it didn't really offer too much. Ben Thomas, he seems to divide opinions online and in my comments. I thought he was okay without setting the world on fire. What I do like about Ben Thomas though, and what I think maybe doesn't get us noticed so much, is he seems like he takes responsibility, and in a team where we've had players, especially like last week, where players sort of like vanished into the background when things went bad, he's constantly up and he's talking and he's demanding this and he's demanding that, and he'll take responsibility on himself, whether it be carrying or kicking or distributing. He takes pressure onto himself, and I think that's something that gets overlooked by him. But yeah, well, he was okay, but like I said, generally I think he's a leader in amongst that team, which we haven't really got many of those. And then the back three, Tom Rogers was good. He did drift in and out of the game at times, but the last 10 minutes where he was forced to play out of position, I think for a little bit with Williams' injury, he was superb. A couple of really important defensive interventions. So yeah, he'll be happy with his afternoon's work. Josh Adams was excellent. I was so gutted that he went off at halftime, but I was so chuffed that he got his try. He's worked so hard to get fit, and he's been one who's talked in the press about he feels like he wants people to start winning, and it's like a responsibility. And I was so happy for him to get his try, and he was part of pretty much everything good that sort of come his way. Blair Murray was a little bit hot and cold. Under the high ball, he was pretty average. Didn't get so much space. I think the credit should go to Japan for that, though, because they managed to shut him down a lot. But he is electric, so hopefully we can find ways to get his hands on the ball more, with instead of just like letting him field a kick and run back, maybe find ways to bring him into the game. His kicking boot that I always bang on about was a source of territory with a 50-22 with a wicked kick. So good afternoon in that respect. Then the bench, what it didn't do last week, what it did this week was make a real impact. When the team started tiring, the players he brought on did make a note. Gareth Thomas was with his trademark low tackles at the time when we needed him, and held up the scrum, which he didn't do last week. Belcher came on and was his usual industrious self. The lineup wasn't perfect, but he hit most of them, and with his carries, he was getting over the gain line. His bounce, the way he bounces out of contact, he just seems to make extra yards, considering he's not the biggest guy. Chris Coleman raised some eyebrows when he got included in the squad and then selected on the bench, and I thought he didn't give away any penalties. The scrum didn't go backwards when he was on. I thought he can be happy with his afternoon's work. Welsh international now. James Ratty, come on, he was industrious, hard-working as he always is. Plumtree was a massive introduction to the game at a time when Japan were really in the ascendancy. He came back in and offered some aggression, flying around the place. He's got just that athleticism and that X factor. Made an excellent backfield recovery. Somehow he was the last man there. Collected the ball and booted it up nearly to halfway on the turn. I don't know how much luck was involved in it, but either way, it was awesome. He put his name forward, kind of puts questions into why he wasn't involved in the 23 last week, but it is what it is. Who else was there? Rafael came on for the end. Didn't really get an opportunity to do anything, although I did notice the way he was speaking to Luke Pearce. There was a couple of decisions, and he talked to Luke Pearce quite well. I don't know if he was the captain at the time, but he had a couple of quiet words and got Luke Pearce to check things on the sly, I noticed. So that was showing his experience there. And then the two backs, Ruben Morgan-Williams made a difference when he came on. It probably not the way he would have envisioned making his Test match debut, but he had to do a job on the wing. But he had a period where he had to step in. He stepped in at 9, and his distribution and selection of passing is what actually led to the try. He had a really good rhythm, and his I mean, it was this clearly the conditions, sweaty, which left a few of Hardy's passes going a little bit high and all over the shop. But Morgan Williams didn't have any of that. He was very controlled in the small part he had to play at 9. So I hope we see more of him now. He should be backing up Thomas Williams, if you ask me. And then Keelan Giles, chuffed for him. It was like a sentimental inclusion. It kind of was a bit confusing for me. I thought, are we just giving away caps to players who, have had a decent regional career? But I thought, to be fair, when he came on, I was gutted that Adams went off. It did make me a little bit worried that there was going to be a big drop off. But he was good. He broke quite a lot of tackles. Didn't have a chance to really take on defenders, which is what he's really good at. But I thought he was good, and just happy for players like that to get their cap. And it's just nice for us to actually talk about a win for once, and not be so absolutely miserable after a Wales game that ruins the rest of my day. So, onwards and upwards from here now, hopefully. Just a note to you guys as my viewers, we haven't, like I said, got to witness a win for nearly 2 years, but people still come and we still interact and we still moan and have a laugh in the comments, and I absolutely love it. And it's a testament to the fandom of the Welsh fans that we've been through so many dark times in the last 2 years of Welsh rugby fans, and you can question why you keep coming back to watch the games, and then you get a game like today and you finish the game and you're like just so chuffed and so happy that you just spend the rest of your day really happy, and that's what being a fan is all about. But that's all from me. I'll stop sweating now and let me know what you think. I'll catch you on the next one.